You always hear that, people describing what a tornado sounds like, but it did. It sounded like the rumble of a train and just loud. And then all of a sudden it was just crashing glass and explosion is what I can describe it as. And basically we went up in the tornado. My memory is like it happened yesterday. It's vivid.
Being sucked up in a tornado with your family sounds like a horror movie or a nightmare to most of us. However, this was my guest today, Randy McCulloh's reality when he was just 11 years old. Randy, thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Right, the pleasure is all mine. What a story you have. Where do we even start? I suppose the most logical place to start is what do you remember at 11 years old from this insane day?
Actually, yesterday marked the 45th anniversary. So yesterday, 45 years ago, I was in that tornado, and my memory is like it happened yesterday. I mean,
Really?
I can remember things it's vivid. I mean, I just can remember just the smell in the air, just exactly what we were doing. Just a lot of, I don't know, memory of that, I guess.
Right. Well, I guess that's what they say about traumatic events. So a traumatic event, technically speaking, is an event that happens and it overrides your ability to cope with it. It's so much information, such new information, such a novel experience that you don't even know what to do with it. And so it kind of ingrains itself in your brain. It says, well, if you don't know what to do here, let's remember this forever so we can maybe look back on this for future information or future decision-making purposes.
It's always done that, evidently.
So what were you doing that day then, and who was there with you?
Well, my family was there. It was my dad, my older sister, Jill. She's 4 years older than I am. And then my younger sister, Joni. She is, I think, 18 months younger than I am. Pretty close. And my mom, and we were just down at our lake home in Mattoon, Neoga. It's just a small lake, but we went down there on weekends, every weekend, and skied and stayed in our swimming suit from the time we got up until we went to bed. Sometimes we didn't even take it off. We just stayed in it all night. And we took baths in the lake, and I was skiing on one ski when I was 9 years old, and they're just the best memories of my life.
Right. So this was a very happy place.
Oh, extremely. Loved being down there. My cousins were down there, and it was a good way to spend the weekend. It was I didn't know life any other way. It was just awesome.
Have you ever been back there since this day in 1977?
Yeah, several times. Actually, my sister Joni and Jill, they bought a place down there, and they currently own a place down there. So,
well, that's pretty impressive that you can return to the scene of this horrific event. Really, it shows that psychologically, I don't know if you're over it. I guess we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But just the fact that you can return there means that it's not so frightening that it's walled off to you.
I remember going back there. This happened August 21st, 1977, and I can remember going back like in the fall sometime, September, October, I don't know, with some friends and other family members just to look over the debris that was left from the tornado. And, I had Hot Wheels cars and toys, things, personal belongings of my families that were just scattered all over. And we just look for what we could find and dig it up out of the dirt and clean it up and take it home if I wanted to. A lot of it we just threw away. But
how long after the tornado did you do this?
Months.
Months, and there was still all that stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Man.
Yeah, it was just debris everywhere because there was nothing left. It was just a foundation that was left. It was a trailer, like a double-wide trailer, like you see in a trailer park, and we had a big addition built onto it with just place where we could just get together and eat, like it was actually a picnic table that was inside, but we had bunk beds. They were queen-size beds, but they were 3 high, so that we could, have families down and other kids. There'd be sometimes 5 kids in a bed, but it was just fun.
Now, for people that watch the show regularly, there's a good chance that a lot of them have seen my episode with your sister, Jill McCulloh, now Jill Doran.
Mm-hmm.
And she is paralyzed from the waist down from this event. You, however, did say before we started recording, you think you might remember it better, despite being a little younger. Do you stand by that? Do you think that's the case?
Well, my memory is just so, I just can remember everything that happened that day. Other than when I landed, that's when I was knocked out. But, just came out of nowhere. I was out skiing. It was around noon on a Sunday. And I was out skiing. It was beautiful. It was like glass. The water was so smooth. So that's why I chose to go out skiing. And it was just beautiful. And then all of a sudden it started getting kind of stormy looking, dark. So we pulled our boat in and got on the boat lift and lifted it up. And, it started getting darker and darker and green and almost black. We were putting away inner tubes and lawn chairs and rafts, securing everything because it was starting to get windy and you could tell it was going to storm. It was just getting pretty nasty. And we went in the addition where we just hung out as a family, and then the women, my mom and my aunt and another aunt, went into the kitchen, and they were making lunch, some sandwiches for us to eat. And we're just sitting around looking outside the windows. Our addition had windows, surrounding it pretty much. And so you could see everything that was going on. There were just big windows. And we're just looking outside, and, we didn't have a TV. Or maybe we had a TV, but we didn't have any kind of cable, or there was no such thing as direct TV.
in a campground.
Yeah, it was just, there was nothing. But we did have radio, and turned on the radio, and I can remember hearing, in between the thunder and stuff, just like an alert, kind of, there's been a tornado spotted. That's what I heard. There's been a tornado spotted. And then all of a sudden, I looked outside, and there was a tree that I couldn't even get my arms around it today. And that thing was just bent over. Touching the water. You could tell that I've never seen a storm like that, and it was dark as night. Street lights were coming on. It was dark. And all of a sudden, after it said there'd been a tornado spotted, just all of a sudden, it was just like like a train. You always hear that, people describing what a tornado sounds like, but it did. It sounded like the rumble of a train, and just loud. And then all of a sudden it was just crashing glass and explosion is what I can describe it as. And basically we went up in the tornado, and the lake is small. It's maybe a little bit bigger than Lake Bloomington, but smaller than Lake Clinton. And it took us over the lake. So I would say probably a mile to a mile and a half. And then it turned and changed directions and brought us back to where we were. Probably within 50 yards, 100 yards of where we started. We went up over the lake, it changed directions, brought us back. So, I can remember seeing the water separate, looking, just things, not like Wizard of Oz where you're flying through the air in a house or something. It's just debris flying everywhere. People, things, gas cans, inner tubes, dirt. I could smell dirt and just the water. I could feel the water from whether it's the rain or from the lake being sucked up, but I could feel it. The lake is not a real deep lake. It's really shallow. I mean, there's spots in the lake where you can just walk across it. So, I mean, even at 11 years old, I could walk across our cove. So to see the water separate really isn't that big of a deal because it's like 4 foot of water. But
wow, that is astonishing. First of all, tell me, how high up would you guess you were sucked up in this tornado? Is it 20 feet or is it more?
I really don't have a clue, I'd say more than 20. I just can remember things flying through the air. I couldn't tell. I couldn't see like a horizon, anything like that. All I could see was just dark, things flying through the air.
Oh, so it wasn't, I guess I was picturing it wrong. So you saw things flying in the air. You knew you were in the air, but it wasn't, you didn't have clear vision of the ground, say.
Right.
Or far away objects.
Right.
It was
it's not
dark.
like I was in an air balloon or something like that flying through the air, I mean, it was just like, I just really feel like we were in the tornado, like going around in the cyclone, up and over and then turn back. Could be wrong. I'm 11 years old, that's what my experience is. I feel like we actually went up in it and went over the lake, came back, and I was awake during everything until we landed. When we landed, I hit the ground, and it just felt like I was buried alive. I mean, it felt like the ground was soft, and it just felt like I hit the ground, and all the dirt just went right over top of me, just like I sunk 6 feet in, And then I came to and looked around, and I could just see like my Uncle Bob was running around and jumping over down power lines and looking for people, basically. And I just said, Uncle Bob, what's going on? Am I having a dream? That's what I said. I thought it was a dream. I thought it was just a bad dream. It didn't feel real because going through something like that, it's not something you experience every day, I guess. So I just felt like it was a dream. And just seeing him running around, he just said, his exact words was, a cyclone hit. A cyclone hit. And I'm like, what the hell is a cyclone, But it was a tornado, and I could see, bodies, things scattered. I don't know.
What did you think when you saw bodies? Were they alive, or did you see some lifeless bodies?
Some were alive. Right next to me was my sister Jill. My uncle just said, if you can get up, go over by this building. There was a brick building that was owned by a guy that really never came down to the lake. It was just a nice brick ranch house, and it was standing. Our places were gone, but that place was standing. There was some roof damage to that place, but nothing major. So we went over to this house, and we just leaned up against the wall, sat down against the wall because it was still raining, my sister Joni and I. And at that time, Joni was able to walk. She had some cuts, but she was kind of like this. She had broken a collarbone. That was all I could see that was really wrong with her, but I had broke both my arms, both bones in my left arm. So radial and my ulna were broken. Clean
Do you have
breaks.
any scars or anything from that still?
No, it was just clean break. It was actually, I can remember once I did arrive at the hospital. They gave me drugs, just to kind of calm me down and stuff, because I'm by myself. I'm 11 years old. I don't know where anybody is. I'm at this hospital, and they just said, "Is your mom, dad here?" I'm like, "I don't know." And they just said that they might have to amputate my arm just because both bones were broke and there was a cut, and they just said they didn't know if they could save it. So my aunt, Betty, actually was there, and she said it was okay to do surgery. But my left arm is fine today.
She said it was okay to do
Just surgery to, have it set,
Oh, not surgery to amputate.
Yeah, right,
It's like,
right.
I give you the okay.
Yeah.
Never forgive your aunt for that, but
Both arms were broke, so I had casts on both my arms, and but getting up, I guess, and finding Jill laying there, and she just said, "I can't feel my legs, Randy. I can't feel my legs. Don't touch me," So I left her sit there, what could you do? And because I couldn't do anything, my arm was dangling.
holy smokes, man.
I mean,
At
it
11 and your sister's 15 laying there saying this had to feel worse than a bad dream.
It just was like a big lump on my arm. It just was really swollen already, and my hand was just dangling. I couldn't support it because both bones were broke in that, left arm. It was very painful, extremely painful. And I looked around and, saw Joni, and she was able to get up, and I looked to my right and I saw my dad, and my dad was, he had broken his nose several times playing basketball and football, and he always had a crooked nose and a big nose like me, but he was breathing real hard. He was not awake. He was just gurgling is how I would describe it. His glasses weren't on, and he always wore glasses, and he was blue. I mean, he just looked like a bright blue, red color, purple almost, just gurgling. I thought he was dead or soon to be dead for sure. But that is it for my direct family. My cousin Neil, he was with Joni and I, and we went over by a building, and there was some other people that were injured that were over there too, and a lot of head wounds and a lot of blood. It's kind of freaking me out, at 11 years old. I'm just thinking, what in the heck? Is this real? I'm still, thinking, is this real? Being up and being by a building and thinking, this can't be real. And then sorry.
Oh, you kidding me? Take your time, man. This is the most incredible story I've ever heard. I can't believe you're even able to tell it. And there's more to it. There's more to it for anyone watching. Believe it or not, I mean, there was more to your immediate family that went on. And would you care to share that part?
Yeah, I just looked over, as we were over by this building, I could just see, people coming, like in pickup trucks and just trying to help. There wasn't advance warning. There was things scattered all over the road. You couldn't get there. It was chaos, and still raining and thundering, and I'm looking and all these people trying to help people, and I could see a group of people that were maybe 20 yards from where we were, and they were just taking like sheets, white sheets, and putting it over bodies, is what I'm thinking it was. I mean, I never got the confirmation that that's what it was, but it's what I thought. I didn't see my mom. I didn't see her. None of us saw her. We just went over by this building and waited till somebody came to help us. Got in the back of a pickup truck and rode to the hospital. There was an ambulance there, and they put this, I don't know, plastic sleeve on me and blew it up. It was just kind of like a splint, air splint, just to stabilize my arm because it was just dangling. And went to the hospital, and that's pretty much, as far as going into surgery, that was the last thing I remember from that day. And by then it was probably 8, 9 o'clock at night. I'm not sure.
And
I mean, it was just a blur.
For people who don't know, and I don't know if you briefly mentioned it, your mom didn't make it. She was one of the 5 people killed in the incident.
Yeah.
What do you remember feeling about that, and when did you get that news?
Well, the next morning after surgery, so it had been Monday morning, today, the 22nd, it was probably, I don't know, mid-morning. I like to get my sleep, and I don't come out of anesthesia very well, and I remember waking up in my hospital room by myself. Well, actually, my grandma and grandpa McCulloh, my dad's mom and dad, were in my room, and they were crying when I woke up. I looked over at them, and I asked them, I just said, how's Joni? How's Jill? Is she here? No, she's not, but she's going to be okay. How's Dad? And I didn't ask about Mom to them, and I just said, well, what about Mom? And they just started crying, and I just knew it, that she was dead, and they just said, she didn't make it, Randy. And I go, I figured, and I just cried, and I had that room until Joni was able to be in my room after she got stabilized enough to be in my room, and then she came in. But I got out Thursday, maybe Friday, and I think I actually got out the day that they had the funeral for my mom.
Were you able to attend it?
No. They didn't even tell me. The friends of the family that picked me up, I stayed with Joe and Aggie McKimmy. They're just friends of the family, and they had a house in Tolono or Pasodum, and they picked me up from the hospital and took me to their house, and that was why none of my other family was able to pick me up, is because they were at my sister Jan was at the funeral. And, Jan was not, she's my older sister, and she was not in it, and she had to deal with everything, all the funeral arrangements and, just worrying about us. And I can't imagine. She had the roughest part of all, I think.
What was your dad's condition?
He was in a coma. I don't know. I can't remember if it was medically induced or whether it was just that he couldn't wake up. But he had head injuries and swelling on the brain, and he had had a heart attack prior to that. So, he wasn't the best of health and very high strung, kind of like me, and he was just in a coma. I mean, I didn't even get to talk to him. I haven't left the hospital and didn't even get to see him. I did go get to see Jill in her room. They took me to see her, and, I had to get down on the floor to be able to talk to her because she was in a I don't know what you call it, traction, where they actually flip the bed over, so she's laying on her stomach for a while and then she's laying on her back for a while. And so that was how I got to talk to Jill and talked about Mom being gone, and just everything happened so fast, I mean, here this was on a Sunday, and get out of the hospital on Friday, and then I went to the Fairbury Fair was that week. I was looking forward to the Fairbury Fair, and somebody took me, my sister Jan, took me to the fair in a wheelchair, and then the next day I started school. So this time of year just kind of sucks. I hate it.
I can't believe that.
I do. I can't. I hate it. I mean, when I took the kids to school, I've got 3 kids. Shout out to Trev and Carly and Tanner. But taking them to school, it was hard for me. I'd cry every year. I just hated it because I can remember, I was going into 6th grade, and I just get out of the hospital. I lose my mom. I was a mama's boy. My dad worked, and we depended on our mom. She was very important to our family, and she was gone. And years prior to that, I would, the Sunday night before going to school, I'd just cry and I want to stay home with you, Mom. I just didn't want to go to school. I didn't care about school. I wanted to spend time with her. So.
What do you feel then when your kids go to school and it's the night before?
I still feel it today. I feel the feelings that I felt. They don't have a clue. I've told them why I feel the way I do, but I can't help it. It's the anxiety of knowing what I went through at that particular time. I hated it. Going to the fair, I wanted to go to the fair. It wasn't like I was dragged to the fair, but I have very uncomfortable feelings about it, I guess, just because of the time of the year. It was a tragedy. It happened. I associate the fair with the tornado because it was at that same time. It was made a big impact on me at 11 years old. And then just people staring at you, At 11 years old, you're, being pushed around the fair and everybody's coming up to you. And I was uncomfortable. And then to go to school the next day, just didn't like it.
Completely understandable. Who would?
Yeah.
And in the 70s, this was prior to people knowing not to stare at people in wheelchairs. Did people ask you what happened?
No, most of them knew because they were from Fairbury. It was the Fairbury Fair. It was just friends of mine that would come up. Hey, good to see you, but I was dealing with my own grief, I guess, or I hadn't dealt with it, It's why we do funerals, You do funerals so that you can say goodbye and closure.
Now, I'm glad you said that, because for people who don't know, you are in the funeral business. I've had, call it what you will, I don't know, I've seen you plenty of times at funerals in Chenoa and in Fairbury. Did you go into this in some small or large part because of what you missed out on as a child with your mom's funeral?
No, I wouldn't say so. Rob Duffy at Duffy Pills Memorial Home. Rob and I were friends from school. We're the same age. We graduated high school together, and he just approached me later in life and just said, you ever thought about going back to school? And I laughed at him and I go, to do what? I hated school, I wanted to get out of there so fast. And he just says, well, to be a funeral director. And I'm like, I laughed at him, and he said, I just think you should think about it. And I just laughed, and he goes, just think about it, talk to Jill, and get back to me.
Jill is your wife?
Jill is my
sister.
wife,
Okay.
yeah. And went home and told her, and she laughed, and then she goes, you know what? I think you'd be pretty good at that. And I don't know, it went on maybe a month or so, and he contacted me again, and I just said, I'm kind of thinking about it. And actually then, probably within 3 or 4 months, I was going to mortuary college. I had to get some general college credits before attending mortuary college, but I started working part-time while I was going to school to get my funeral director license.
Mortuary science is actually a field that I have so much respect for. I've talked to a few young men, believe it or not, who are in that field. And you think about it, you are doing more to make what one of the most tragic and sad days of anyone's life for the people who are still living. You're making it significantly better, if I understand mortuary correctly, and you work on the bodies of these people and you make them presentable and make them look beautiful. This is the last time anyone's going to see them. And you make it look like they're just sleeping, is what people always say. You're doing a service that so few people would want to do, and yet it's so incredibly important for the grieving process, for the well-being of so many people who loved this person. This is what you do, correct?
Correct.
Thank you for doing it. I've been to a number of funerals, sadly, but I'm so grateful that they were as pleasant as they were. Because if it weren't for you, we either wouldn't have seen them, or there would have been a tragic experience to see them again.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly valuable work, but you don't think that there's any tie, psychologically at least, even if it's deep down?
Probably deep down. After he asked me, and then he knew that, there was a time in life where I had actually considered going into the ministry. And one of the words he said to me was, I think this is a ministry in itself, Randy. This is something that there's a lot more to it than what the average person thinks, embalming, messing with a dead human body. It's not something it's what people think of when they think of a funeral director. They don't think of the planning of the funeral service and just taking care of the family. I put my families that I serve almost above my own family, A lot of times I do because I have to.
Yes.
Their needs come.
Yeah, you do a great job of it.
Thank you.
You really do. And it's incredible. You mentioned before we started recording that you worked at Dave's Supermarket, as strange of a turn as this is, for a number of years. And you said, for some reason, that you owe a lot to these people.
Yeah.
They were like a family to you.
Yeah.
How soon after all these events, granted you were 11, so it had to be a while, when did you start working there, and why did you think that was significant? I'm truly curious.
Well, on my 16th birthday, I got a call from Canada, Stefan, which is Mark's wife, and heard that I turned 16 that day. And wondered if I'd be interested in a job. They needed some carryouts. So 16 years old, I needed money, Had to pay for my gas. I had to pay for my car, insurance. Things didn't just get given to me. I had to work for them. And so I started there then and worked all the way through high school, and actually there 17 years. But they were significant in my life. They were good Christian family that showed me how to live life, you know. I mean, I saw what they had and I wanted it.
These are the Steffens you're talking about.
Correct.
The owners of Dave's Supermarket. Great people I know from experience. I've worked with them plenty. Incredible people.
Alan, Mark, Vicky, Brian, just very important. Emmy, Dave, Stefan. I mean, they just truly care about their employees, and I know they cared about me, and maybe still do.
Wow. 17 years, you said.
Yep.
And they cared about. How do you know they cared about you? Would they tell you things
No,
at
just,
work?
I don't know. Anytime I needed to talk about personal things, spiritual things, anything, they were my friends, first and foremost. But they were really more than that. They were, I think they know, but they were spiritual leaders for me. They got me searching for God and what I needed. They directed me, you know. Just, they showed me something, and just not by saying, you need to do this, just by living their life. I wanted to be like that. I wanted more for my life and I wanted my kids to look at me differently than what I, you know, maybe looked at my dad. You know, I wanted a more spiritual based family. And I don't know, they were incredibly important in my life, and don't think I would be where I am today without them.
Wow. That's incredible. I love Dave's. You know what? Now I love them even more. They're incredible. How much can you love a supermarket? Well, it's not the supermarket itself, although that's great. It's the family behind it. There's a reason this place has been around for 70 plus years, and it's just been getting better and better, and everyone travels from miles away to this place. You started working there at 16. 11 to 16, what happened in between there? What was life like? For Pete's sakes, you didn't have your mom around. Your dad, I assume, was disabled at least for quite a while. What did life look like in between those two periods?
A little blurry, but I do remember when Dad did come home. Jill wasn't home yet, but Dad did come home. So it was just Dad and my younger sister Joni and myself. I can remember sitting around the kitchen table at night, getting something to eat, or him trying to think of something to make to eat, because my dad was gone. He was a salesman. Sometimes he was gone during the week, all week, not home. We didn't know how to interact with him as well. He was tough. He was stern. You know, this was the 70s. Your mom did everything, and the dad worked. And I can remember him just crying, just saying, "It should have been me. It should have been me. I wish it was me instead of her." You know? And we kind of felt that way too. And we did. I mean, she did a lot. I love my dad, but Mom was
the one who
special.
raised you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still have people today come up to me and just say what an impact she made on their life, you know. And as she was just my mom, I don't know what she was like, you know. I remember what she looked like, how she sounded, the way she laughed. She had false teeth at a young age, and she would take her teeth out and chase us around the house and bite at us, and just, she was hilarious. She was funny. She was just loving. She was great.
God rest her soul. She sounds like a wonderful woman.
Yeah.
Wow. In the 70s, it was something like less than 5%, I know, of college students, when asked if they believed that counseling or therapy would be beneficial for them, less than 5% said yes. Today, within the last few years, they've ran that same study a number of times, and they find that over 90% of college students will say that they believe therapy or counseling would be beneficial for them in their mental health.
Yeah.
You've been through perhaps the most traumatic series of events of anyone I know. Have you considered at least therapy? Have you talked to someone? I know the Steffens were profound in your emotional and spiritual and mental well-being. Have you ever seen someone?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's been, through the years, different events or problems or issues with my life that I've never been shy about talking to somebody. I've never turned away somebody saying, I'll help you. Like Jill, I've always chose to talk about the tornado and losing Mom. I feel the more I talk about it, that's my therapy. I'm dealing with it. I'm grieving, and I'm letting people know how I feel about it. I do feel in the 70s. I know, look at all the things on the news, the hurricanes and tornadoes or floods, and, the Red Cross is there, or, food is there for people, just the support that our nation has for tragedies. Here we went through a tragedy, not anybody ever reached out. Never. Like Red Cross, anybody said, do you need anything? Can we help in any way? Would you want to talk to this counselor? I know it's the 70s, and that's just the way it was.
The stigma was so different.
Yeah, I guess.
Did you say
I don't know.
no?
I mean, I'm just thinking in my head, though. It's like, look at what we do now. Had I had that, maybe I wouldn't be as screwed up as I am today.
Oh, well, I think you're doing pretty well, all things considered. Holy smokes.
I've got my issues.
Right. Oh, sure. I didn't mean to come off like...
No, I do. I do. I've just... extreme anxiety about, the next bad thing is right around the corner. I'm just waiting for it.
Right.
I hate to sound like a Debbie Downer, but everybody says, what's the worst thing that can happen, Randy? What's the worst thing? And I'm like, dude, I know. The worst thing, is right around the corner. I don't know. I just feel that way.
It's got to be so crazy for you because you weren't expecting anything, and then the worst thing imaginable could happen, or that could happen did happen. So now whenever you don't expect anything, what still could happen despite whether or not you're expecting it. What that must do for your anxiety, that event, that's tough, man.
Anytime that any kind of important decision needs to be made, or anything, I'm always looking at it and analyzing it, saying, now, this is the worst thing that could happen, like preparing myself. I prepare myself for that natural disaster, every event that I go through. I'm telling myself, I try to prepare myself, like going to mortuary college. What if I fail? What if I don't make it? What if I screw up? What if I can't do this? What am I going to do? I prepare myself. So therefore, I put that pressure. People don't know it. I put the pressure on myself, the fear of failure causes you to succeed, I feel. So I've just got that burning in the back of me saying, I can't screw up. I can't screw up. I was second in my class at mortuary college. I was driven to succeed because I did not want to fail.
Yeah, well, it's a sad reality. I listened to this podcast by a neurologist and ophthalmologist at Stanford, and he has incredible guests on, experts in their field. One of them, a recent episode, was with a conversation with someone who was a world-leading expert on motivation and what exactly it takes to achieve a goal or have success. And they found, much to a lot of people's sadness, I guess, is more than visualizing the best possible outcome and striving for that, what causes success more often, more consistently, is imagining the worst possible outcome.
Yeah.
And that's what it's like. That makes sense neurologically as far as your psychology goes. If your brain works harder to avoid a horrible thing. If there's a dog chasing you, you're going to run till you're dead. If it's a rabid dog, it's going to get you, rather than you'll run faster then and for longer than if there was a prize at the end, you had to just run your fastest and beat people to get it. You run away from bad things much more effectively than you run towards good things.
Yeah.
That's just the way that's how we've evolved as human beings is, well, that's not true. But anyway, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that's
totally.
sad reality kind of.
Yes.
But I guess you can rejoice a little bit and look at the fruits of that.
Yeah.
Graduating second in your class.
Yeah.
Huh. But it comes at a cost.
Yeah. Nobody knows the work that I put in, I have to work hard. I just don't want to fail, so.
And you have to suffer through an awful lot of anxiety.
Yeah, I do. Still do. A lot of control, I just want to know where everybody's at. I just know that in any particular situation, something can go wrong. There's been numerous things that have happened in my life. Tragedies.
You mentioned a thing about your wife.
Yeah.
Would you care to mention that?
I think it was like 8 years ago. Forgive me, Jill. I'm not positive. 8 to 10 years ago. I'm not real good at the dates thing. Probably should get more anxious about that, shouldn't I?
I think you're good. Your anxious levels might be good enough.
But Jill and I were having some problems in our marriage, and that's another thing. I mean, I just at a young age we were left alone, so I grew up pretty independent. My sister and I did, Joni. And we had a lot of freedom. I ended up getting my girlfriend pregnant the summer that I graduated. In 1984, I graduated, and by November, I was getting married. And I had no plans to get married. I knew she was the one. And I do believe people will say, no, Randy, that's not true. But I have a tremendous faith in God. And regardless, I just think that He wanted me to be with my wife. And maybe the only way that I was going to do that is for her to end up pregnant. I don't know. Anyway, we got married. I've got 3 kids. Trevin lives in Fairbury. Carly's married to Andrew Gerber in Lexington. And then Tanner's married to Melissa. They live in Fairbury, too. But been married for 38 years. Almost as old as I am.
Wait, who's been married 38
Me.
years? You. Okay, I was like, I thought you
I'm
said
not
your
even
daughter.
38.
That's right. Wait. So if you were 11 in 77,
No, I'm
that means
56.
Right, 56. Okay, there we go. Yeah. No, you're a young-looking guy.
Majority
don't
of
get
my
me wrong.
life, I've been married.
Man, well, you look great,
But
though.
I love my wife, and so we were having some issues. Back to that, and actually, she said she was going to be moving out, so I left and went to some friend's house and just was talking to them and working through, and a lot of it is because of my control, my anxiousness, my, anxiety. And so she said she was going to be leaving, and I couldn't deal with that. And came back home after visiting with my friends for a while, and she was not at home. And I called her cell phone, and I couldn't find her, but she did end up calling me back, and she was at a friend's house, and she just said she didn't feel good and that she was laying on this friend's couch, and she says, I just don't feel right. And I go, what's the matter? And she says, my neck hurts, my back hurts. I got a headache, terrible headache. I can't get off the couch. And she said, would you take me to the chiropractor? Take me to Scott Nowak's. And I'm like, it's Saturday afternoon. He's not there. And I was almost kind of mad. I thought she was just playing with me or something. And I ended up going down to the friend's house and getting into the house. The friend wasn't there, but Jill was laying on her couch, and got her up and put her in the car, and I just said, we're going to go to the emergency room. So I took her to the emergency room in Pontiac, and they got her in and got her situated and did a bunch of tests and did CT scans and all this, and came back into the room not too long after that, and got down beside my wife, this doctor did, and said, ma'am, we've got a helicopter coming. You've got a leaking brain aneurysm. And I'm like, hello, I'm here. He wasn't talking to me, he was talking to her. And I don't know why that was. He just didn't direct things to me. And so in a matter of minutes, hear another tragedy. I hear the words aneurysm. The only time I ever heard aneurysm is when somebody dies. So next thing you know, there's a helicopter there, and they're taking her to St. Francis in Peoria, not knowing what to do. I just was able to get to the hospital in time, and they had to stabilize her first, get her blood pressure down. She had leaking aneurysm, but when they scanned her, they actually found another one. So she had two of them, one in her frontal lobe and one in her occipital, which is in the back. And the doctor was Dr. Jeff Kloffenstein over in Peoria, and he came and talked to us and said that he was going to have to go in and do physical surgery. There's things that they can do with aneurysms where they can put like little stents in them, or little, what do they call them? Clips? No, I'm not sure. Anyway, just said that Jill wasn't a candidate due to the way that this specific aneurysm looked. They had to physically go in there and do that, which meant opening up the side of her head and going in there and putting these clips on these aneurysms.
Go into her brain.
Yeah.
Saw off a quarter of her top of her skull, go in there, and then go into the brain with the most delicate of utensils and just open that, clip a little blood vessel.
I mean, it's
amazing.
It's our it's what we depend on. Our, spinal cord and brain is just what controlled us, and I knew that. I've seen the inside of a skull. I know how delicate these vessels are. And I just could not even imagine somebody cutting the side of somebody's head and going in there and doing that. And having that person come back and be normal or functioning, I thought, she could be in a nursing home, never recover. But, it was 16 days of being in intensive care, neurology over at St. Francis. I stayed there nonstop. Didn't go home. And she gradually turned it around, and she's 100%, I say.
No way,
oh,
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
She struggles with things, and she feels, I don't know, there's some things, just minor things, but not enough for anybody to know but her best friend, me,
Does it do anything for you to, when you were 11 years old, to be in a situation where things went from bad to worse, to now, much later in life, to have things look like they're about to go bad to worse yet again, but instead, this time, to go up? Does that do anything for you?
I'm very thankful. Very thankful. Like I said, I've got a tremendous faith. Believe in God and love God. Nothing is by accident. I just feel like God has just always been there. It's just that it took a while for me to see it, and appreciate. And being a Christian is a growing experience. It's not like, for some people, it is an overnight change and people just stop being who they were and become somebody else. Well, God wants me to be who I am. I feel like I can reach more people and lead more people just being who I am and loving on people. I can reach more people and build the kingdom that way better than me being some carbon copy of somebody else,
People will hear this. It's so profound that you have such a faith like you do, despite the tragedy you've lived through. Now, some people will hear this and be inspired, but others will be angered in a way and want to challenge you with this. And I apologize, this is kind of a deep question here, but how do you square it that you believe in an all-loving and merciful God who has his hand in just about everything in your life? How did he allow for the death of your family members and the obstruction of your entire life at such a young age when you were innocent?
Don't get me wrong. When I was 12, 13, I thought, this God that everybody... I can remember going to a Bible school, and, like in the summer, you have the vacation Bible school, and the teachers saying how God loves us and all this stuff, and, he, and how everybody says, oh, it was just your mom's time to go. And I'm like, you're full of crap. You're full of crap. I don't see a God that says, today's the day. Carolyn, you're dying,
And
you're
way.
I'm ruining Randy and Joni and Jill and Stan and Jan's life. I'm taking away something from them. It wasn't that. I just don't believe it. I don't see a God doing that. We are given choices. We made the choice to go down there that day, that weekend, to be there at that particular time. We made the choice, There was a lot of times where I would be mad at God. I would curse and, if you're so great, How could you do this, I went through it with Jill even when the aneurysm. I just thought, this is it, And I was pretty strong in my faith, but I was questioning, I just kept, I don't know, just dug down deep. And I can remember like the night before her surgery, just singing by her bed. She was out of it, but singing and just praising God, And I just felt a peace, like everything was going to be okay.
Whoa. The Holy Spirit must truly be inside of you. It sounds like Job in the... Is it Job or is it Job?
Yeah.
Job. I don't know.
Job.
The Old Testament. Job, okay. In the Old Testament, when the devil's just tormenting him, making his life absolutely horrible, test after test, boils, your work, your everything you love is gone. And his friends are like, Job, you must have offended God. After they hang out for a week and don't talk, they're like, we've had time to think. You must have offended God. What'd you do? And he said, get out of here. Leave me alone. He says, I will not. And he says he won't curse God, and he won't. And that's all the devil wants him to do. And sure enough, things get better, weirdly enough. And there's something to be learned in that story. But I think there might be, I don't know what I want to say. There's something that feels off about God makes everything happen. Like if we have free will, right? If I got up and, I don't know, I've always said if I got up and punched my old roommate Kyle in the face, is that God's plan? No, I have free will.
Yeah,
Let's not
you
forget.
made the choice.
God has a desire for us, perhaps, but it's our decisions that ultimately get us there or here or somewhere completely different. Our free will is an important thing that we can't just, put to the side when we say things like everything's according to God's plan. But also, I'm Catholic, and we like to look at what the saints say. And a lot of these saints will say things like, if we knew the glory of heaven, and we believe in purgatory, right? And there's something to be said about Protestants who don't believe in purgatory and saying, well, you can still become holy through your suffering. If we knew the glory of heaven, if we were there right now, we'd look back at our earthly lives and almost throw ourselves into as much suffering as we possibly could, because it just helps us en route to get to heaven. And you could almost imagine, and I hope this isn't offensive, but like if your mom is in heaven, as I assume she is, she's fine.
Yeah.
And she'd almost look back at, it was a tragic day, but what's it matter in the grand scheme of things? I'm in heaven with God for eternity, and I'm ultimately peaceful.
And there's no suffering there, so she doesn't
Right.
even realize that I'm suffering.
Right.
Right.
Or at least she's not suffering knowing it, because
Exactly.
she knows how minuscule
Otherwise,
the
it
suffering
wouldn't be heaven.
Right. That's right. That's right.
It's the way I look at it anyway.
Is that how you look at it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, my sister Joni, she had toxic shock syndrome. She just all of a sudden on a Sunday, she got real sick and got a call from her boyfriend at the time and said that he's taking her to the hospital, and sure enough, she had infection and turned into sepsis, and her kidneys stopped functioning. Then they told us that she had, in fact, toxic shock syndrome, and that she had an IUD in her, and she was just massive infection in her, and they were going to go in and do surgery on her and remove that and try to remove all the infection. And, along with that, they're pumping them full of fluid to flush and get the kidneys working, trying to do dialysis, cleaning, just trying to stop the infection and get it out of her. And, I'm a funeral director at that time, a new funeral director, 5 years into it probably. So, I knew what I was doing, but it takes years. I've been doing it 21 years, and it just takes years of experience to really be good at what you're doing. And she was beyond recognition anymore. I knew what they were doing. talked to the doctor that was going to be doing the surgery prior to, and I just said, listen, I took him off, and I just said, is this a glorified autopsy for you? I just said, she's basically dead, and you're going to do this. You want to know what's killing her, so you're going in there and trying to get this out of her, but is this just basically an autopsy that you're doing right now, and then she's going to die on the table? It's just for your own satisfaction that you're doing this?
You said this to the
Yeah,
doctor?
because I'm a funeral director. I know what's going on, And he looked at me kind of with bright eyes, and he just couldn't believe I even asked him, but he just said, I understand what you're saying, but he says, I believe I can help her. This is the only chance we have. So they did the surgery, and she's good today. She's good today. So, I have seen miracles, and I believe they're miracles. I do. I'm confident they're miracles. I'm not saying the bad things aren't going to happen to me again. They are. I know they are. I'd rather they didn't, but I've had enough in my life. And I do, every situation that I go in, or every tragedy that happens in my life, I just think, how much more can I handle, He doesn't give you any more than you can handle,
If you weren't so tough, maybe he wouldn't give you so much.
I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know. I do. It's totally made my faith and belief in God that much more to see those two miracles. My wife couldn't imagine life without Jill. She's everything.
That's beautiful. Randy, we're getting towards the end of this conversation. I almost think I know the answer to this question, but just to wrap it up, who do you credit the most to helping you through all of the baggage, all of the new traumas, the tragedies, that you've had in your life? Who's been there for you most and contributed to your, maybe just your continuation straight up, and then also your just quality of life? Who's contributed to that?
Oh, man. That's a tough one. Fairbury. I do feel almost like after the tornado, the support from our community, Fairbury, Forest, Chatsworth, Chenoa, overwhelming. People would come in and ask us if they, can we bring food, or for, like a week after everybody got out of the hospital. I don't know. Throughout the years, anytime anything's ever happened, our church family, the people of our community, they don't even have to be Christians. They're just good people that love us, that wanted to help in some way. Everybody wants to help, and it's why I stayed in a small community. I don't want to live in Chicago where you don't even know your neighbors. It's so important, when somebody dies and going through a visitation, and how many people come to share their love to the family for that person, or just them, it's so important. After a visitation, families just are like, oh man, that was just so neat. So special to know, stories about your dad that you didn't know, or, somebody will come through that just totally surprised you. I know I'm probably getting off track, but I do feel like Fairbury, our community, our small community, I owe a lot to. In some small way, I feel like in funeral service, I get to give back, I get to help those families, and I wouldn't want to do it anywhere else but my home, I'm able to serve those families that I know and love. I want to be the one to help them, They're allowing me in their world 3 or 4 days to help them. They're allowing me into their circle, I don't know. It's mind-blowing. It really means a lot. And it does make me feel better about who I am, and helps me to forget about poor me, feeling sorry for myself, but knowing that not too many people can say, I know how you feel, or I've been where you're at. In funeral
Virtually
service,
no one for
I was
gonna say for you, no one knows how you
losing
feel.
someone. I've
Right.
lost. I've experienced tragic death. I've experienced just a regular death too. And it's loss. It's hard either way. But I don't know.
Randy McCulloh,
Getting lost.
your life is extraordinary. It's really like a movie. I can't believe it. There's so much there. It's almost overwhelming. And that's just me saying that, and I've only listened to it. I can't imagine living through it, but you're a strong, strong man with a fantastic heart. It's incredible, and it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much for sharing your story, sharing your stories, sharing your incredible insights, your faith. You've promoted so many things. The people of Fairbury, the town of Fairbury, Dave's Supermarket, the funeral home. It's been a great pleasure talking to you, and just thank you for coming on to my show.
Thank you. I would like to just say thank you to Rob Duffy, Debbie Duffy, Janelle Hoffman. It's who I work with. They're funeral directors at Duffy Pills, but doing what we do, we have to lean on somebody. There's times when it gets real hard, but they've been very supportive and very helpful to me. I appreciate them very much. They are my family too, but without my family and friends, I'd be nothing.
Wow. You've got great people in your life then, fair to say. All right. Randy, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for watching and listening. Until next Sunday, God bless and have a great week. That was Randy McCulloh.